and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Zach Kazan. I'm the managing editor at Worn and Wound, and you made it to the final episode of the year of the Worn and Wound podcast. Congratulations to you, the listener, for finishing this epic journey with us. We've got a full cast of characters today for the big end of year episode. This episode, I think, will drop on Christmas Day, if I'm not mistaken. So
it will.
It's a gift.
You're welcome for the fantastic gift under the digital tree.
Stuff this in your stocking.
Yeah, exactly. Love that energy to start the end of year episode. Let me introduce everyone on the pod today. We've got, as usual, Kat Shoulders, head of content. Kat, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm so excited that this is our last episode of the year.
Yes, it's a big moment. It's a big moment.
It's big. Yeah, it's big. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I've also got Zach Weiss, co-founder of Worn and Wound. Zach, how's it going?
Good. Very good. Excellent.
And we've also got social media manager Devin Pennypacker coming in from HQ in Brooklyn. Devin, how's it going?
Good. I realize this harsh lighting makes me look really pouchy, but I'm doing very good over here despite looking pretty rough.
That's great.
You look great. It's fun.
Good.
We all look fantastic. It's the end of the year. It's I'm very, very happy with the way all of this is turning out. We're going to talk about our favorite watches of the year, kind of like how we feel about the year in watches on this episode, and maybe talk about some of our favorite individual pickups, our favorite acquisitions from the year that was. But before we do that, we always do a wrist check. Devin, you want to start us off? What are you wearing today?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I have the Girard-Perregaux Laureato 42 chronograph, Panda dial, blue indices and hands. I don't know, just a special piece, and one that I've been wearing it all day today, and it keeps catching the light and catching my eye. And what I didn't realize before is that hobnail pattern actually catches the eye of everybody in the room when the light hits it.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been having people come up and ask about it all day long. So
is this a new pickup, Devin?
So it is currently on loan for the holidays, just spending some time. No, I don't think I would have quite gone this route for the price point. But it's in the early days.
Hold it up to the camera. I haven't been in the... Oh, yeah, look at that.
Nice. Yeah,
it's really good.
That's cool.
It fits me like a glove.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, you guys all have bigger wrists, so I can't wear it. It's a little big for me, but you all can pull it
But that makes it look cooler when it's just jangling off your wrist like that.
Jangling, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. It looks fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that once you've had a chance to wear it for a while. I really like the Laureato. Yeah. I think that as the integrated bracelet sports watches go, it's one of my favorites. And it's not a genre of watch that I'm like particularly like. It's never like been that big a draw for me, but I do tend to like the Laureato. Very, very cool piece. Mm-hmm. Zach, what are you wearing today?
I have on my Christopher Ward Belcanto.
Very nice. Excellent.
Yeah. Old hat now.
So. Kat, how about you?
So I have a new piece that just came in yesterday. This was actually a surprise. This was a gift. And I got a Arkin Alterum from Ken for Christmas, which is so incredibly nice of him. Yeah, I was very excited to see this come in the mail, and he included this cool like new orange like rubber strap that he sells with these. He actually included several straps, but yeah, I was completely surprised. I was not expecting this. So Merry Christmas to me.
Yeah, no, that's great.
That's awesome.
It's funny. I also got mail from Ken today. I got I got probably the same straps he sent to you. The straps come in these cool like cylinders that are
I thought it was like ammo or something in there.
Yeah. So he sent me a couple of rubber straps for my Arkin, and also a hat, which I'm very happy to add to my growing collection, massive collection.
He does nice hats. Yeah,
hats. So that's fun. We both got Ken mail on the same day. Shout out to Ken.
Big shout out. Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm wearing my my Pollen model that they released earlier this year in collaboration with the Ono typeface
I forgot that you have
company, typeface firm, design firm. I don't really know how to characterize them, but they designed a typeface for this limited edition version of the Pollen model, which is a really just very easy to wear, fun watch that I like a lot. I picked it up at the Chicago Wind-Up Fair, but it really always makes me think of San Francisco because that's where they introduced it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you may have picked it up there.
Yeah, so I kind of I saw it there, and I thought about it until Chicago, and then I bought it in Chicago. But I was just kind of just preparing end of year content, thinking about the watches I like the most over the course of the year, and I really do still enjoy wearing this. I think it's a good example of a really fun independent brand that makes really original stuff for a very affordable price point, in a bunch of different sizes that anyone can enjoy. So
I've been debating buying the clock version of that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I feel like I could see that. I have an older clock I got years ago right above my desk here, and I feel like I need a refresh. But you're talking about what type design firms are called. They actually have a pretty cool name, foundries.
Foundries, yes, I've heard that. Yeah, thank you for mentioning. Yeah, that's so the Ono Foundry, responsible for the design of this watch. All right, guys. So 2024, as we speak, almost over. Mercifully so, as we might think from time to time. Before we get started and talk about individual watches that we liked from 2024, I wanted to ask, just kind of open it up and get your general thoughts on the year. Was this a good year for watches? Did you have a hard time coming up with watches that you liked from 2024? Kat, you're shaking your head. What are your thoughts on 2024? Good year?
I did not have a difficult time putting a list together. I think, this was a really big year. I think a lot of, I don't think there was a lot of, I would say, new innovations per se, but there was a lot of iterations of things that are already out there that were really cool. Some of which I'm sure we'll all go over, but I think it was a pretty big year overall.
Yeah. Zach, how about you? Do you have any thoughts on 2024 kind of writ large?
So, as it always happens this time of year that we do something like this and I end up literally going through a few hundred pages of the site to remember what came out. And it was kind of shocking actually, because there's watches that I at this point thought were a few years old. Which perhaps I'll get to later, that were just, earlier this year. So when you put it all together, it was, I think, a pretty impressive year, because if you'd asked me this without me looking, I'd be like, I don't really, what came out? But there's really quite a lot and pretty diverse and from a interesting range of brands. And, at least I think for my personal interest, most of the things that I found were, from more independent brands or micro brands or, just not your run of the mill luxury brands. So excited to see that.
Yeah, that's sort of my overall impression as well. I think the narrative for this year really kind of started to be generated by people like us and podcasters and just watch types, even before Watches and Wonders, that this was going to be sort of a slow year. And I think it was for a lot of the bigger brands, a lot of the typical kind of luxury brands. But if you look towards independents and micros, there's a lot of really interesting stuff out there. And I did the same thing. I combed back through so many pages of articles and reviews to find stuff. And you definitely have those moments where you're like, oh yeah, that did come out and that was great, which is always kind of a fun thing to do at the end of the year. Devin, how about you? What do you, when you look back, years from now on 2024, how will you remember it as a watch year?
I guess I probably won't. It'll probably blend in with all of the other new releases, which is what tends to happen. I actually found myself, a lot of articles and pieces of content were coming out recently that kind of talked about how 2024 was a lacking year in watches. I've seen that kind of be a narrative that a lot of people are pushing, and I fought back on it. I'm like, no way, that can't be true. But looking back through a lot of the releases, I found myself agreeing with them a little bit, where it was more iterations and refinements and not necessarily big statement pieces, which, I guess means we were spoiled last year and the year before, really, more than anything else. But I think that the area where I kind of saw the most lacking was in that sub $1,000 price point. We saw a lot of brands push up into the $1,000 to $2,000 price point, and that meant that there was kind of a void there that hopefully next year is filled. But I think this year was kind of left open for a lot of people to take advantage of.
Yeah, I think so. I also wanted to ask you guys about trends, and one of the trends that I found was that there's this conversation about price that's happening at every level that I think is just kind of like impossible to ignore at this point. And I totally agree with what you're saying, Devin, that like that under $1,000 price point, it's just, there are just fewer watches that occupy that space. Things are just more expensive than they were, 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago, which is, partly just normal. And also I think, maybe indicative of something that's happening, in the watch industry that's unique. I'm not really sure. I think it'll take time to figure that out. There's a very long thread in our Warner Wound Plus Slack that's about this very topic. There's like something like 90 replies to it. It's really actually pretty interesting read. If folks who are in the Slack, want to go back and read it, it kind of addresses this from all angles, and a lot of people participated. I noticed that as well, that at the lower price points, it's harder to find, sort of those like really special watches. I do, however, I've got a couple watches that are like big statement pieces that I think we can talk about when we talk about like best of the year. Did you guys see any other like kind of trends over the course of the year? Or do you have any thoughts on like this pricing conversation that, again, like it seems to happen with like every single watch that's released? There's a conversation about the price of it, whether it's too expensive, mostly.
I mean, I do think a lot of this has to do with cost of, materials and production going up, as well as just like the like competition, that like to make a successful watch at any price point, I think you have to try a little bit harder. And the under $1,000 price point, which is already very competitive. So the harder you try and stand out, the more you kind of have to put into your watch, and these little things can add up. And, I can speak from some experience there that like some of the, components can get expensive quick, especially when different materials are involved, different movements are involved, things like that. Like you want to put a Swiss chronometer in a watch, you're going to have a very narrow margin to have it under $1,000, probably too narrow to really have a functional business model there. So I kind of think that's just going to be the reality. It's going to move up unless people want to get a lot more simple again. But I saw William Messina put on his stories the other day. It's just a statement, and I replied to it with like a face, like a shock face. But he just said it's easier to sell $100,000 watch than $1,000 watch right now, and I think that might be very true. Like there's like a certain customer that is ready for a certain type of purchase, and that is a high-end luxury customer who has probably only gotten richer, and then the sort of rest of the space has just gotten much more competitive. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about, the different markets for those watches, and like exactly like as you put it, like who's ready for what, and I think that market for lower price watches like is more like discerning now probably than it was a few years ago, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's largely because of not to like pat ourselves on the back, but like I think because of like the work we do and other publications like ours who show people like a diverse group of watches at an accessible price point, it's naturally going to lead to people being pickier, and that will make everything just a little bit more competitive, I think.
I will say I wouldn't, this is like a big regret, but it's like it's a tight rope to walk there, or line, or whatever type, it's a tight thing, because like, and I know I've been on the side of like, well, this brand charges X for a watch, and then so-and-so other brand, I could pick whatever, let's say a Sin versus some other brand. You can like be like, oh, well, hardened case and blah, blah. Why is this one 2,000, that one 8,000, something like that. And then you're like, well, then clearly the 8,000 one isn't worth it. And, I think, well, if you're talking luxury brands, obviously there's all sorts of different markups that are built into there. But when you're talking about smaller brands and this like sort of like, there's like this requirement for them to have the thinnest margin possible. And it's like, this is not a charity. They're not running charities. Yeah. They're not doing this for you. They want to make product, but it's like, there's businesses. So building in like lifestyle considerations into that, as well as development considerations into that, I think makes a lot of sense. So, not to backpedal everything I've been saying for years and like be pure value focused, but I feel like I feel a little sympathy for brands that can't move up market because they've played the really tight margin game so much, and now they have an expectation for it.
Yeah.
I'll counter that and squash that a little bit there. I was looking back and I completely forgot about this release earlier this year, but the Tag Heuer Formula One Kith. That was a weird collaboration with arguably materials that were pretty affordable at a price point that a lot of us looked at and said that is way higher than it should have been. I think
but that's true though. That's a tag.
Right.
It's a different consideration.
Yes. But I think too, if you look at the collaborations in the industry this year, we saw new collaborations pop up with brands that we weren't really anticipating. And then there was a collaboration tax that was kind of packed onto it. So I think it was kind of a way of brands kind of probing to see if they could push their boundaries of their pricing structure a little bit. And in doing so, it brought up this conversation of price and value more often than I think we're used to.
The tag Kith thing was, that was an insane couple of days when that thing was released, because like Instagram was just like on fire, and like everyone had a take. My feeling on that was always like, that is a Kith product, and Kith product, like Kith makes sweatshirts that cost like $400. Like that's just, what do you expect? Like this, like here's your introduction to the Kith brand, a brand that I like. I don't really have a lot of personal experience with Kith. I guess they make like, good high quality stuff, but it's like, like it's expensive. And it's like probably more expensive than like, the Kith sweatshirt is going to be dramatically, 400x what you get at, Target or whatever. So it's
Supreme-esque, right? It's
exactly. Like it's a luxury product for people who want a certain name on a label, and it is what it is. Some people look at that and roll their eyes. Other people, like enjoy it as a enthusiast pursuit. And I think both are fine. Kat, do you have any thoughts on this pricing question, or any other, kind of trends that we saw emerge over the course of the year?
Yeah, no, you guys brought up some valid points. I'm honestly very numb to pricing at this point. It's sad, but I am. Everything's expensive. Have you tried to buy a house lately? Wood is expensive. Like, all materials in general are just so expensive right now. I see a world where I think people have to reevaluate their collections, and instead of owning 20 different $1,000 watches, you're going to have a couple, and you're going to buy more smartly and spend your money more wisely. I think we're moving into a time where it's going to be harder and harder to drop, $3 to $4K on a watch that is maybe not quite worth it, and it's not a bad thing. We don't need so many watches. So
whoa. Speak for yourself.
Do you know what podcast you're on right now, Kat?
Yeah. Says the person who says, look at this new watch that showed up today.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm a bit numb to the pricing stuff. I see the prices go up, and it's just like, I don't put much thought behind it anymore.
Yeah, at a certain level, it all just kind of everything just seems kind of made up. How these prices are arrived at. But I think like the point you made, Zach, that like these brands have a right to make money. The people who own these companies, that's something that I think about all the time as we get to like know the people behind the brands, especially like, they've got to make a living. It's our hobby, but it's their livelihood. And,
and I will put an asterisk on this. It's like the people I'm referring to are not the wealthiest people on earth who own some of the brands that have been discussed here. That's a different thing. The royalty, the margins in luxury products is like a whole nother conversation. The percentage you can watch a Speedmaster increase every year. That's a whole different thing. Yeah. It's the independents and the micro brands. I think sometimes get an unfair amount of flack for potentially charging what they want to charge to run their business. I don't know.
Yep. I completely agree with that. Let's move on to the actual watches of 2024. I know you guys all, I hope you guys all prepared lists. I hope you're not doing this blind or just off the top of your head, because that would be challenging. But I just wanted to, I think this is a good opportunity at the end of the year to just kind of, talk about some of the watches that we enjoyed the most. Kat, let's start with you. Was there what's your number one watch? Like your, the MVP for you this year?
Oh man. So that's kind of tough. So I'm looking at my list here. I will have to go with the JLC Geographic Polaris that they did with the gray dial and the orange accents. And I say that as I have a very similar looking watch. Well, not quite similar, but in color and everything on my wrist. But this watch came out and I felt like it didn't quite get the buzz that I felt it deserved. JLC's done a geographic before in the Polaris line. However, it was like so busy because they had all of the cities sort of around the dial. They've really simplified it, and so it's just like a little aperture window at the bottom that has the cities in it, and I think it looks so clean. I love this watch. I wish it was smaller, but to me, this was like my favorite watch of the year. I just absolutely love the Polaris line. They did a green dial like a year or two ago that I just fell in love with. The only reason I don't have one is because they're a little big for my wrist, but still a beautiful watch, and probably my top for 2024.
Are those 42 millimeters?
They're 42. Yeah, but they wear like, the dial is so like there's no bezel on it, so they just kind of wear like a plate a little bit. I can pull it off. I've tried one on, but it's not quite in my like, I want to drop this amount of money, because it would just need to be a hair short. If it was like 40 millimeters, I'd buy it.
Yeah. The Polaris is an interesting line. I feel like it's often just kind of like ignored, frankly, by folks like us, and maybe even by JLC a little bit, and how they're developing it. JLC, like, we think of them, I think, as like a dress watch brand, because the Reverso is so iconic, but like, they have made some like pretty great sports watches over the years. There've been a lot of great, like, very sporty Memovoxes from like in the 60s and 70s. The original Polaris, of course. There's a lot of cool, like, sporty JLCs, and I wish that they, for whatever reason, the Polaris is like not really like, connecting with like a broad segment of their clientele. I wish they, just, they could put it all together and like and come up with like a sporty, something sporty that really resonated, because they do a good job with those watches when the
dials are incredible in person.
Yeah,
if you tilt that at an angle and shine a light on it, it just, it's a special thing to look at.
I'd love to get one in and review it at some point. I meant to do that earlier this year. It just got crazy, but I haven't checked out this like smoky gray dial, which looks really cool.
Yeah.
So I have a confession about this watch, actually. It came across my desk earlier this year, and I did not realize that it was a new watch at first. And I think that is kind of part of the problem with the Polaris collection, is that at the moment they all kind of have a bit of a similar look unless you're really digging into it. And so it came on my desk, I passed it off, and then went back and realized, like, oh, this is a brand new thing. This is a new color. There's new stuff going on here. But just at first glance, you do kind of, you see the Polaris at first. It's so boldly Polaris that you don't necessarily see everything else going on.
Yeah, it's a really cool movement and really cool watch.
Yeah, cool. Good pick. Zach, how about you? What's your, do you have a favorite watch from the year, something that like really stood out? I have seen a little tip to listeners. I'm putting together, as we, even right before this call started, our watch of the year post. And so I saw Zach's. I haven't seen Kat's. I've seen Devin's. I know what I wrote. I'm not going to talk about my watch of the year. I'm going to let that be a surprise. But Zach, I know.
I mean, I feel like I have to, that now that you've summoned that, now I'm going to have to stick to it. Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, I was sort of debating. So, I mean, I kind of like, so it's in the post, it's the SLGW 003, but with the caveat that the 005 was my actual like favorite watch, but I think the 003 was, to me, the most important watch of the year that I could remember at that time. It's so hard to do these things, but like my logic was that it's a new platform for Grand Seiko, and I really think they nailed the proportions on it. The modern feeling of it really feels like a new direction that Grand Seiko can take. Like, even obviously it's a part of the Evolution 9 series, which already sort of was that, but I feel like didn't quite hit maybe as well as they wanted it to, or I don't know. That might be, people, you could disagree with that, whatever. But like, I feel like this new case at a 38.5 and whatever, just under 10 millimeters thick with a 20 millimeter lug width is like just perfect, and still looks and feels very much like a Grand Seiko. It's 100% Grand Seiko. So the 003 is like the mainline model of that I think we'll see a lot of permutations on in the coming years, that I'm excited for. I also said, like, be excited for other movements they might put in there. Logically, I think they'll put the manual wound 3-day spring drive in that. I would just expect that. They probably won't put automatics in that movement unless they have a thicker version. But the 005 was the limited edition version that is celebrating the 45 GS model, because this is the first high beat manual wound. The 9SA4, excuse me, is the first high beat manual wound Grand Seiko movement since the 60s or whatever. And so that watch is just, I mean, I've come so close. It's just very expensive. I mean, it's like over 10K after taxes. And that's just been way more than I've been looking to spend right now. Should it be ever, but these things happen. But I love that's such a, if you know Grand Seiko. And when we posted a video about it on YouTube, the comments perfectly exemplify why I love it. A lot of people are like, oh, it says Seiko on the dial. Why would you ever buy that? And it's like, you are not the customer. If you think that, you are not the customer for this watch. You don't understand its value, and that's fine. But this is for people who appreciate the history of Seiko and Grand Seiko and that watch. And I think they just nailed it. It's an incredibly beautiful watch in person. So.
Yeah, that's a great pick. The those watches that we saw at Watches and Wonders, earlier this year, just like really blew me away. I haven't. I'm still thinking about them, and it's I think you're right that like $10,000 is it's a lot to ask. For that watch, we just talked about how every brand's kind of asking a lot for their watches, but I think you get like quite a bit for your, like there aren't like a ton of comps.
I was just actually having this conversation last night with some friends I met up with, and they'd actually been to the Grand Seiko boutique, partially because they're not from the city, so they hadn't been around, and they had a chance to see the 003 in person. And it was sort of like, they're like, yeah, but it's in the 003 is even a little more because it's a brilliant hard titanium, so it's like 11K. They're like, yeah, it's just so much money. It just didn't feel, what I want to pay for like a Grand Seiko. And you're like, put that movement in a Swiss watch, though.
Yeah.
What is a high beat dual impulse? It's just like, it could be any number in a different brand, right? Sure. And so it is really, it's unfair almost to say it, but at the same time, I'm in the same camp. It's like I would buy it, but for the price, I don't know.
Yep. Devin, did you have a chance to see those new?
I did. Yeah, I loved playing with the little bird on the back. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah, honestly, it was one that when I first saw it in the press release, I didn't expect to like it all that much. I was like, okay, cool, another iteration of a similar dial texture and color we've seen before, but it is just a very different thing. It felt special. It felt like a new release. I don't think it quite got the recognition it deserves, but it was one that, I don't know, if you have a chance to go in and take a look at it in person, please do so, because it reads so much better in person than it does online.
Yep.
It's all Grand Seikos, in my opinion.
True. Very true. Yeah.
And sure. I actually at the GS9 event in November in the city, got to try one on from the audience, from Thomas, friend of Worn and Wound, Thomas Hall, and he had just had it on like a nylon strap too, and like it comes on a no stitch gator strap, so if you try it on at the boutique, it might be a little bit of a different experience. And it was really nice to try it on a completely casual strap, like almost like a shockingly casual strap, because I mean, it just, the way it wore, like it's just so comfortable, and it's very flat and super light because it's titanium. It was, put thoughts into my head. That way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a definitely it was also for me like a standout piece when I think of like the top kind of like 4 or 5 watches of the year. That one's definitely in the conversation. That's a great pick. Devin, how about you? Do you have like a number one choice you want to shout out?
I do, but I wrote about it in my watch of the year piece, I'm not going to talk about. No. We're going to tease that piece, and we're going to talk about something different. And I'm going to go back to one that actually really stood out to me. So the funny thing is, in looking back at the releases, I started to look back at like the January through April timeframe, which is a timeframe I think we all kind of forget about because of Watches and Wonders. It just kind of blows everything before it out of the water. But leading up to that, I spent a little bit of time with the new Blancpain 50 Fathoms, the automatic titanium 42 millimeter. They had the whole collection that came out. They also had the gold version too. I did wear the gold version for a little while, and it was remarkable. But that collection of watches just really, it sits on the wrist better than the older versions do. It's just really well made. You're staring at a beautiful movement, best bezel action out there, in my opinion. Just really a pretty incredible piece. And because it's titanium, even at 42, it still wears smaller than you would think. And it just really stuck with me.
I might have missed this one, to be honest. I don't know that we covered it on we can't cover everything.
This is news to me.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, no.
Well, they were great.
Yeah. Interesting.
So best bezel action on anyone, like that you're throwing the gauntlet down there, saying it's the absolute.
Oh man, that's a really bold claim. I don't know if I can actually make that claim because there are some other watches out there. I'll tell you what, best bezel action for the price point, which is
like
high,
like 20 grand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Starts
I don't know what I'm
16.6
saying anymore.
on titanium. So
yeah, the bracelet was great.
Now I'm very curious though what that feels like. Just that it's getting such a.
If you get a chance to handle the gold, get the gold because it is just so warm and beautiful and makes no sense on a Blancpain, but that's kind of fun.
I've never seen these in person. I've always been very curious. I obviously love dive watches, but I've never gone hands on with these. I've just never gotten the fan club,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a bit of a blind spot for me too, if I'm being honest. The the 50 fathoms and really like Blancpain in general as a brand is just one that I have a respect for Blancpain, of course, but like I just haven't really, pardon the pun, dove into the sorry. Made it almost a whole year without a diving in pun. I'll have to check those out. Thanks for the rec, Devin. Yeah. It's good that you went out on a limb on the bezel action, though. I think that's
when you feel it, you'll understand. It just it's special.
All right, I will take your word for it until I can try it myself. So my I had like a very I had like a long list, and then I narrowed it down to 3 or 4 pieces that I really liked this year. I think the first one I want to talk about is the Armstrong dual time GMT resonance. This is so at Geneva Watch Days, I saw a lot of really cool stuff, but this is the one that I came away from thinking was just genuinely really special, and it's a really kind of years from now, people might look at this as one of those kind of earth-shattering indie releases. I think it has the potential to be that at some point. And part of that is just sort of understanding the story of Armstrong and how this watch came to be. When it was presented to me, they have basically all of the resonance pieces kind of out on a table, and they show you the resonance masterpiece watch, which is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's just this gigantic kind of oblong shaped case, which before this was the only other resonance dual time resonance with a dual time GMT complication. And they've shrunken everything down into a case size that I think is under 40 millimeters.
I think it's 39 or something, and it's thin. It wears so well, and it's it's incredibly beautiful. It has Armstrong is known for their skeletonization and seeing elements of the movement from the dial side. That's a huge part of their aesthetic, and it really is this kind of beautiful thing in motion. It's hard to describe and hard to appreciate from still photos, but it's just a really amazing thing. And the watchmaking is just pretty unparalleled. It's just quite an accomplishment to get that much watchmaking in such a small package. Zach, I know you're a fan of Armstrong and a fan. I think you've seen this watch. Yeah, I did get to see it. They had a little meetup in the city. I was going to say before wind up, but they were at watch time, so I guess for them it was before watch time. But just a little collector and fan meetup, and they're super casual people, and it's kind of funny to be in this circumstance. That's a 6-figure watch. Looking at it with just cheeseburgers and beer, that was the set. It was literally the back of a bar, and I mean, it's just an exceptional watch, and knowing a little bit about resonance and what they've achieved with it, they kind of claim to have revolutionized resonance in watches through the use of this clutch system that you can actually watch on the watch itself. It's this little wave shaped form that kind of bounces between the springs or the escapements, and what it's doing is sort of helping sync everything rather than the resonance vibrating through the plates. And because of that, it's a sturdier resonance, because I think resonance is sort of theoretical, and if it's in a watch that's being waved around, it's kind of whether or not it's really functioning. It's sort of been a question, and so they did like a lot of research to get there, and then so they have that and have a few watches, and then like you said, they just took these things that were gigantic and like miniaturized it, which seems like such a feat, and they didn't just do it a little bit. It wasn't like 54 to 44, because those other ones are over 50 millimeters. Like they're gigantic watches.
I'm trying to find the stats. Yeah, so the masterpiece is 59 by 43 and 16 huge. Millimeters thick, and it's like I mean, like no shade. Like I love Arm & Strom. I love a lot of their watches. But like this watch is kind of ugly. It's just like this big like kind of like honking thing. It's like it's not an elegant watch to wear. It's like a very it's a big statement piece. To
basically. Me, it's sort of like an MB&F type thing. Like if you look at it more as like a sculpture than a watch. Sure, that's how you can get it.
Yeah,
it's not ugly; it's a sculpture.
Right. I remember I didn't tell this to Claude Geisler's like kind of like walking me through everything, like in the booth at Geneva Watches, and like I obviously like didn't say to him like this huge like dramatic difference in like the attractiveness of these pieces, but like holding one like the masterpiece in one hand and the new piece in the other hand is just like. One is like very, very refined, and like the other is just like it's all built around like the technology and the movement. And the new one is really like meant to be worn as a watch. It's also like a beautiful watch to wear. So just a really impressive piece, one that I haven't stopped thinking about. And
so it was on my list too, because I was going through my Instagram and I saw my wrist shot that I had of that. And I was like, oh right. I got to see that thing. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool piece. Kat, do you have another favorite from 2024 that you want to share?
Yeah, I may go through a couple because I don't want to take too much time. But as I was going through photos also from earlier this year, I came across the colloquium that we saw in Geneva. And that was so freaking cool. And I mean, I guess that was considered their first official kind of release for them. Yep. And yeah, I think it's a really cool piece, and I like what they're doing. I'm excited to see where that brand goes. And then another release of this year, which I thought was actually last year, and I bought it, is the white Speedmaster that came out this year.
I was waiting for that one.
So good, yeah.
Yeah, that's on my list too, by the way, the white Speedmaster, because it's just like...
we should all just have white Speedmasters. They're so good.
Yeah.
Except for Devin.
No way. I went to the Soho boutique and refused to see one in person. I was looking for the new Seamaster. He offered me a white Speedy. I said, no, thank you. And he was appalled. Jaw on the floor.
You didn't even want to look at it. You were like, we got those at home.
I've seen them. Yeah. We have Speedmaster at home.
Yeah, I like, obviously Omega does bazillion iterations of the Speedmaster, but this one like hit the mark, and it's very, very good. If you haven't seen this in person, I recommend you do. Don't listen to Devin. And I'm super glad I got it. My name finally came up on the list because they're kind of hard to get still. Devin, you missed your opportunity.
I will go on the record. It's fantastic. It is probably my favorite Speedmaster. That dial is actually beautiful. The white lacquer works, but it's just not for me. And it doesn't look the best on my wrist. So. Yeah,
I totally get it. I think it's very different from the black version. And it just has a different vibe. It has a different feel. It feels a little bit more... I don't know if it's weird to say it feels more sporty in a way, but it is like a sporty, dressy vibe versus I think the utilitarian vibe of maybe the black dial.
I think it feels more luxurious. Like,
you think so?
Significantly more luxurious than the black, because like the black dial is just like part of it is just like how we associate it, and it kind of like exists in the imagination, for decades.
It's a tool watch.
Exactly, like the moon watch, and has a matte dial, with like some like very subtle like texture, and like the white one is like a little bit more opulent in the way that it's it has this like a luster to it, so like to me it feels more like a luxury, which is why I like it more than the black one.
It's pretty cool.
The question I have, and maybe we can like do a poll or something on Instagram for this, is will Kat own the white Speedmaster a year from now when we do this podcast again?
Let's take your bets, people.
Yes or no.
Send them in.
We'll still be in the question. I think it might be.
I'm going to say yes. I'll have it next year.
I think it might be, only because at this point, you'll keep it out of spite just to make sure that we'll just to prove everyone wrong.
Yeah.
But that's a great pick. I'm glad you.
Was I the only one that thought this came out like last year? I didn't realize this came out this year.
It came out early in the year.
Yeah,
was it before early. Watches and Wonders?
Yeah, I think it was like early March when it came out.
Let's just real quick before we move on to more watches we liked from 2024. I think like Omega kind of like towards the end of the year kind of emerged as like one of the more active brands this year. They came out with a lot of stuff. Yeah. And for a brand that doesn't do like, they don't participate in Watches and Wonders, like they're not like part of any big trade shows, just kind of like drip things out throughout the year. It turned out to be a pretty big year for them. They had those the pair of Steel Seamasters that were very well received.
There's some new Aquaterras too. That were
some new Aquaterras. The Speedmaster Pilot, which a wide variety of opinions on the Speedmaster Pilot amongst ourselves and amongst our Slack group online. So what do you guys think about Omega's output this year? Did they have a good year? I think last year we talked about them kind of having an off year. So I kind of think they recovered a bit this year.
I think so too. Yeah, I think last year was that the year they did all like the colorful Aquaterras, and it was like kind of it for them.
It was the big Seamaster release last. So like they did all those blue Seamasters and like different
the summer blue
stuff.
Which were pretty cool, but also I don't know, just a bit too different at times.
Yeah, I agree.
Zach, do you have any thoughts, positive or negative, on Omega's output?
Good year for Speedmasters. I mean, the white Speedmaster, the first Omega in space.
Oh, of course, the first
recently,
which
I mean was gorgeous in person, but for the Lume, which I just think they went a little too far on like the Fotina look with it. But otherwise, it was beautiful. I'll be honest, Seamasters and Aquaterras do not register to me. I have virtually no interest in them. They could throw $1 million out and I just won't even notice. They all look the same. That is like the most bland same me watch. And Devin, I know you and it's like, I understand people like them and they have them. I have my dad's old one here. It's an old Bond one, but they just do now and never have done much of anything for me. Yeah, sorry.
You saw some cool gem set pieces, I heard, right? At the,
I did get invited to see the new Omega boutique in Soho shortly after it opened, and I was with some other editors, but they were from more the fashion side of things. And I think they, for all of us, sort of incorrectly thought that they just wanted to bring out the gold and gem set thing. So it's just a table full of the blingiest Omegas you've ever seen. And I actually was like, do you have the first Omega Spacer? And they're like, oh yeah, you want to see that? And everyone was like, yes. Can we see? Oh, wow. But they were like, oh yeah, please. It was a bit of just a misread, I think, of the audience a bit. But I mean, if you're into gem set stuff, they got it.
Yeah, they do. They do a nice job with that.
This
stuff.
Was an Olympic year too, which
oh my god!
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? That was a gorgeous Speedmaster.
The CK.
Yes,
the gold.
I love that.
I just saw that one. I was like, oh yeah, that was really nice.
The bronze, silver, and gold. Right?
Yeah.
It was.
We also had the America's Cup Omega that came out. The nobody knows the regatta timer.
Oh yeah,
I just looked up the blank
piece.
faces.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I like it when they release a quartz Speedmaster, like the really like high end like tech forward stuff. Is pretty fun.
A lot of Speedmasters. I count. It was like 7 or something Speedmaster releases.
Yeah,
weird.
It's an important watch for the brand. Watch to the moon,
Yeah.
Will Daniel Craig be spotted in something that's not yet released at some point next year?
Knives Out 3.
Oh, there is a new Knives Out movie. So yeah, he'll be he'll be walking the red carpet. He's going to be up for an Academy Award probably for Queer, this movie that he's in. Getting a lot of attention for that.
Check the wrist.
Yeah, he'll be.
What's the story with Bond? Like, is there a new Bond coming at some point? I feel like they've been talking about this for years. Yeah. But it's like, at what point does the torch just get handed on, and it's like, sorry, Daniel, you can't be the only Bond Speedmaster guy.
They got to make a casting decision. I think they haven't made anything public yet, but I've heard rumors that there's something like a decision is going to be made at some point in the relative near future, because I think they want to get started on the next movie, because it's now, it's been a while, and there's so they want to capitalize while they can. Zach, any other watches from 2024 that were notable for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot. It's kind of, I don't know where to. I mean, I'm trying to. Okay, like, there's too many here. So I'll just drop a few really fast. How about that? No.
Yeah.
One that was surprised that came out this year, because to me felt like last year, was the Sinew 50 Hydro, which we got to see for the first time in Switzerland. And that's why, I think, because it already was out, but we hadn't seen it yet. In my mind, it came out earlier. That was just still on my like potential list. Like, I actually, after realizing it came out again, I was like, oh, this has been out for a little while. I wonder if there's any on Watch Recon right now to pick up. But the people are holding on to them. So
I have an alert set up.
Yeah. Such a cool watch. So moving from that one, the to go for like a big brand watch, the JLC Duomet that came out this year. Like, as far as like awe-inspiring kind of watches, I think we saw, or I got to see at Watches and Wonders this year, probably because I didn't get to go to the Longa meeting. This took the cake, and like, I look back at the photos and their posts there, and like, they're just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I've been a fan of the Duomet concept for a while. Still, I mean, not inexpensive watches, but the older ones are like $60,000 watches you can pick up for $20,000 right now. So they're kind of a crazy value at that point, and like big gold watches. Yeah. But yeah, they're beautiful. I like the kind of mid-century styling they gave to them. I'll stand by that they got rid of the German silver is probably the only real negative one can come with. But it also, I think there's a corporate logic to it, as sad as it might sound, why they wouldn't put that on there. And it's not like, it doesn't take away from the functionality of the movement, obviously. And they're incredibly expensive though. I mean, they were like, the platinum one's $80K or something like that. So these are dreamers, but they're beautiful.
I had the JLC Duomet Chronograph Moon in platinum with the salmon dial specifically on my list. Like, that watch is just,
me too.
It's insane. It's so good. Man, like JLC. This is the second time JLC's come up on this episode. And
a good year.
I had another one on my list too.
And they had a good Reverso year also.
The tribute that was like stunning. Yeah.
Chronograph they just came out with that, like, the solid gold with the gold movement Reverso chronograph. That was like an unexpected drop. I guess it's not like a fully gold movement, but gold plates. But they had the like vertical lines and that gold dial are just
that's the one I had on my list too.
I think they have a new Master Ultra Thin, I believe, too. I don't know.
Sleeper hit of the year, JLC. Just like didn't realize.
It sounds like it. Yeah.
Very good year. Anything else on your list, Zach, that you want to?
Sure, I'll drop another one. I'll drop one more. Space One Tellurium.
Yes.
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
Forgot about that guy.
Which, I mean, I feel like when that was coming out and then came out, like, we talked about it, I think, a lot, because Zach, you and I were both like super kind of taken with it initially. It's such an amazing concept. I think that watch, like, I still kind of want it, but I just think the design of it is a little too out there for my taste, which that I don't like. It's just an intense futuristic looking watch. I mean, you could look it up, Crown at 12, spaceship case, but the actual tellurium function is so cool that it almost like overrides that for me. I kind of just want it as like a artifact of the time. But if they were to ever put that into something more classic, I like classically styled, I would be all over that. And I feel like they would have just like another tremendous hit. Not that this one was a hit too, but
I had the Space One on my list also. Just like a really, like, such a cool concept for a brand to kind of like make these like very complicated watches and like futuristic cases at an affordable price point. And they work with with Theo Offray, who's like a really like fantastically talented independent watchmaker, and I'm just like, they're one of the brands I'm just most excited about seeing what they, always excited for like the next thing that they have, because I feel like they get more ambitious, as they go. Devin, you got a couple more best of
picks?
Actually,
let me roll through my list very quickly, just a couple high notes. Top of the list, it was Dunk on Tag Heuer Kith, so we can cross that off.
Okay, we've done that.
But next on the list here,
you definitely prepared for a draft. Like
I did, yeah. I came here ready for a fight. I came here for a draft.
A little behind the scenes. We were planning. We were toying with the idea of doing this episode as a draft. We decided not to. But we down.
Sorry.
Yeah, still kind of. We'll save it. We'll do a draft for something else. But yeah, sorry, Devin. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. No, in the sub $1,000 category, this is the one that I said I had the toughest time with. But two I wanted to bring up. One was the Tornik Rayville Blackjack. I really liked that one. It was around $800. Really cool kind of vintage reinterpretation. Stego movement, really reliable, and also just felt solid for the price point. Really cool piece there. Young Hans came out with a Max Bill Ladies, which luckily my partner doesn't listen to anything that I do, and she will be getting one of these in the near future. So little teaser for you there. Obviously, we talked about the Seamaster. That 300 meter, the brushed silver dial was just, I don't know, it hit me right in the heart. Like I said, I went to go see it. Might have walked out if they had it. Listen up, Soho. Let me see. There's one more on here. Yeah, JLC.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't even notice that one. That is a nice dial. I'll give them that.
This is a weird one.
First time looking at it. So.
But the Hermes Cut.
Oh yeah, that's a cool piece.
What a cool watch. This is the second year in a row that they have come out with a watch that I think is still a lot of attention. Mm-hmm. I think that is indicative of what's to come. But to make a statement and say, hey, here's I think it's 36 millimeters, very interesting shape, very interesting case. Not really all that similar to anything that they've done before, but it was just a really neat piece to see come out, and one that I hope that they keep to iterate on and hopefully come out with a larger version of, because I would wear this.
Yeah. Yeah, Hermes is one of those brands that like has a tendency to surprise, and they do like a lot of like very elaborate, like artisanal high-end stuff. But yeah, no, that I remember the cut was kind of like an under the radar hit at Watches and Wonders.
Super cool.
Sure, that people just were not expecting. I'll give you a couple more from my list. So I've got like a trio of watches that I kind of think of like as in a group that sort of to me represent like a theme throughout the year. The Furlan Mari Disco Volante, Serica's Parade, and the Anoma A1. And you can probably add, there's probably, like, we can all probably each name another watch that sort of like fits into this sort of like retro shaped case sort of genre. But these are these are like my three personal favorites, that sort of emerged this year. I had a chance to go hands-on with each of them, for varying, lengths of time, and was just really impressed. And, I talk a lot about and write a lot about how I've been kind of waiting for this, like the trend of the kind of like vintage inspired sports watch to sort of like go away basically and move on to just like really anything else, something more like design driven or craft oriented. And I think that this year we really started to see that in an approachable way with these three watches and several more. But all three of these watches are relatively accessible. I don't think any of them are over like $2,000 or so. They might all be like between $1,000 and $2,000, and they just offered like really cool, interesting designs that are kind of outside the norm, and all very successfully executed, in my opinion. Particularly, I think the Serica Parade is sort of like, if we look at like what each brand is doing, like that represents a like a pretty dramatic shift and some like a pretty big swing for the brand for Serica. Yeah. So those three for me really stuck out.
Those are good. I also had the Serica too.
Yeah, that was an awesome piece. We saw the vintage inspired dress watch make a huge kind of swing at the market this year.
Yeah,
we saw the Golden Ellipse come back. We saw the Polo 79, the Creator Locomotive, all of those kind of pulling from the past, which was kind of cool. And I think they found their audience, but I think the larger audience as a whole was still kind of looking more in the sport watch direction. So hopefully that trend doesn't die. It keeps on going, and we see some more of those historical dress pieces come out. But who knows?
It's a question that we get asked a lot. Is the vintage trend going to go away? I don't think it ever will.
No way.
I think it's just going to be there. Yeah.
Yeah. It changes though. Like it becomes, like we're all getting older. Vintage watches are getting newer, and who knows?
Don't mess with neo vintage. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
It's hey man, everything what's new is not new at a certain point.
Yeah,
so
I wonder when the 90s become vintage officially.
Oh man,
I feel pretty vintage. If I'm being
feels like yesterday, but it was just a couple others on my list that I can quickly shout out. I just reviewed this watch, the Echo Neutra Rivanera, truly one of my favorites of the year. Another kind of like fits in with that same sort of trend of kind of like like non-circular watches at least, or shaped cases. And
I don't really feel it's vintage.
No, that's definitely no. The Echo Neutra is like very contemporary, so not really part of that trio, but definitely like not a sports watch. So
I love your reference, Zach, in your video that it's a watch that Batman would wear.
Yeah, I think I said I was trying to come up with like some
it is
sort of,
though. I could see like a gothic. Yeah, comic book version of Batman wearing that watch. It's really
just
cool.
like, it seems like it comes from like an imaginary world, I think about like like in Quentin Tarantino movies, he has these like Red Apple cigarettes, which is this like brand of cigarettes that doesn't exist in real life, but it exists in every Quentin Tarantino movie. And then like, it's just made up, but it seems so authentic. And there's something like that, I think, in like the Rivanera. It's just like a complete kind of act of imagination, on their part.
Gattaca too, a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's a really good
kind of thing.
Yeah. That's a really good comp. And another watch on my list that I feel like is completely forgotten, Kat, I know you're a fan of this one too, is the Brown Dial Cartier Santos.
Oh yeah.
That was introduced at Watches and Wonders. I really like that color.
Honey brown.
Yeah. I'm not even like a big Santos guy, but like when I see that watch, I think like, oh, I could own a Santos. Like that's
beautiful.
Yeah. Anyone else have any other? We talked about a whole bunch of watches.
Yeah, I'll throw out just a few more. Bel Canto Classic. I've really been won over by this watch. I went to Texas about a month ago and got to see these in person, or I saw the blue at least, and just absolutely stunning. Mike's been posting. Now they have all of them. They have the silver, and the silver I love. It might end up. It's like on my list for next year for sure. And something that I saw in Chicago was the Sol Labs Layer 3.1 desk clock. Not quite a watch, but I think it's really cool. And I just want to give it a quick shout out. I like what Sol Labs is doing, and it's really, really awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Zach, how about you? Any final picks for?
Yeah, I had the 12X on mine too. Less out of personal that I like personally loved it. I'm just not a big skeletonized watch guy, but I think it was a very impressive release from them.
Yep.
But I lost where I was on my thing. The Zenith triple calendar.
Oh yeah.
I really like seeing. I feel like calendars sort of got a backseat for a while, so a triple calendar chronograph is just a nice return to form. And then the Longines Heritage Central Power Reserve.
Yes.
That was one that that was one of the ones I was like, wait, that came out this year. And then the only time I actually saw one was earlier this year at the Longines like press event. And that's just a beautiful watch, one of their best vintage designs, and well executed contemporary version of it too.
Yeah, no, that's one that I completely forgot about that watch, I'll be honest, but it's very, very good. Very, very good piece. How about you, Devin? What's
we
left
messed
on
up,
your
guys
list?
Nobody said Tudor.
We haven't talked about Tudor at all.
Like Black Bay 58 GMT, Black Bay Metos and Black, Pink Chronograph
GMT.
You
would say the monochrome.
Did we?
That's what I'm saying.
Though?
Like there's
it's like I honestly like I love Tudor. I own a Tudor. I'll own more Tudors, I'm sure, throughout my life. I feel like this year was a kind of like a holding pattern year for Tudor. Like they intentionally released a version of the black, like they literally called it the monochrome. Like they literally said like this is the most basic version of this watch. It was very good, but it's like it's not meant to like stand out, at the end of the year in like a best of context, I think.
The 58 GMT, though, is one that lit the world on fire when it came out and then just kind of faded away very quickly.
Yeah, because I think the some of those vintage cues might have been a little too much, I think, on that. But that's a watch that like we'll see another version of it, I'm sure. And
it's interesting, Devin, like not to make this like strange, but you were working at a different company at the time when that came out. And I think at Worn and Wound, in our audience, I feel like the monochrome was way more the watch that I felt a buzz around from the people we were talking to than the 58, which was, I was kind of surprised got less of a response to, because I feel like looking at them at, I would keep wanting to say Basel, at Watches and Wonders, it felt like the winner, but it was just that the clean classic thing beat out the seemingly more commercial success. And now I feel like, frankly, now neither of them have quite as much buzz as I would expect.
The bottom line here, the thing to remember is that none of the watches Tudor released this year could possibly beat the Black Bay Burgundy in a Thunderdome.
We'll have to see.
Is just something that if we take any lessons from this year, that's the one I want to take.
One last thing I want to throw out there too. Vacheron Constantin came out with a new Berkeley Grand Complication pocket watch, which is wild, absolutely wild. If you have any time to go and like read their web description of that, please go do so, because you're never going to see it in person. Just a wildly cool thing to show off and actually produce.
Yep. No, that's I'll always be fascinated by the crazy high-end custom made pocket watches with the just like kind of exist to like break records. And I feel like if I had like an unlimited amount of money, maybe I would like do that. Maybe I'd like participate in that like kind of pocket watch arms race to just kind of like see, like have a watch named like the Kazan pocket watch. Like that would just be
what a great name.
Fun. Yeah. Before we shut it down for the year, I thought we could go around and everyone just has like one personal acquisition that was their favorite pickup of the year. That's
don't start with me.
Yeah, we won't start with you. We'll finish with Kat. I'll go first. My favorite watch pickup this year was the Zeitwinkel, the 273 Sapphire dial. I just thought it was I had to move a bunch of pieces to get that, and it was just a really satisfying watch to own. I have a little piece that I'm writing about that watch that will be on the site at some point, either within the next week or maybe early in the new year. But just really, really fantastic watch. That's my personal favorite. Devin, how about you? Do you have a watch that you picked up this year that was your standout favorite?
Yeah, I think everyone probably knows at this point that my Gen 1 Planet Ocean was definitely my favorite pickup. There were a couple other watches that I picked up this year, but it was more of a consolidation year for me, where I cleared out a whole bunch of my watches and picked up that Planet Ocean. And little teaser for everyone, but I've got some big plans for the new year, so keep an eye out, because the consolidation will continue, but there are a couple pieces that I'm gunning for in 2025.
Cool. Excited
to see how that takes shape. Nothing like a little tease heading into 2025. Zach, how about you? Do you have a favorite? I feel like I can predict yours, but
yeah. I mean, I got more than I expected to this year, all things considered. But yeah, my favorite watch I picked up for my 40th birthday existential crisis, which is the Lange Zuna Lange 1 101.029, which, yeah, I mean, if you our video about our most worn watches of the year, that was my pick for that, because I do wear it at least a little bit every day, and have wound it every day, and it does not drop below about 50% power reserve, because it's, I'm pretty obsessed with it. It's everything. It is what I wanted from it. It is just a really perfect watch for my sensibilities at this time and place.
Yeah, that's a great watch. You wrote a really nice piece for the my year in watches series on acquiring that watch. That'll be live by the time this podcast airs. So folks can go read that. We'll link to it in the show notes, of course. All right, Kat, favorite pickup of the year.
Time to think.
Yeah, what have you got?
My favorite watch pickup this year was my Tudor Neo vintage, not vintage, from 97 Submariner. This was a Tudor watch that they obviously collaborated with Rolex on, so it has sort of like hybrid Tudor and Rolex pieces built together in it. I love it. I just got it back from servicing actually not too long ago, and it's been back on my wrist a lot. Blue dial, blue bezel. It's just gorgeous, and definitely my favorite pickup this year.
Yeah, beautiful watch. I was with you when you bought that watch at the Leica store in San Francisco. So, yeah, fantastic piece. That's a really great watch. So we went the entire hour just about without mentioning Tudor, and they come up twice in the last 5 minutes. So just that's how we roll here. Thanks, guys, for a really fun conversation on the best watches of the year. I thought it was a really fun year for watches. Lots of diversity and in the watches we talked about today, and it makes me just look forward to 2025 and to see what's coming down the pike. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
So thank you to all of you. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. Hope everyone is enjoying their holiday season, and we will be back next week with another new episode of the Worn and Wound podcast. So until then, happy holidays and take care.